The Pokemon World Championships are just around the corner, and if you're like me, you want to catch every moment of the action. This week, I caught up with the absolute best to learn a little bit more about the competitions that are going on throughout the event. Today, we're going to be talking to Gabby Snyder all about the Video Game Championship, also known as VGC, as well as Pokemon Go. Yes, that's right, a 2-for-1 special today. Gabby was so much fun to talk to, and I learned a lot, not just about the games, but also about the world's experience in general. If you enjoy this video, make sure you like and subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments below. But anyways, let's get down to business. Today, I have Gabby Snyder with me. Gabby, welcome. For those who don't know who you are, how about you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name's Gabby. I go by simply Gabby over on Twitch, so I guess that's like my handle. But I've been playing competitive Pokemon ever since 2006, which was the Journey Across America tour. Started commentating back in 2016 for VGC, and I've recently started commentating Pokemon Go as well.
Very, very nice. Before we get into the detail of things, I do want to ask you something, and maybe you've hinted towards it in the previous answer there. Have you been to a Pokemon event before?
Yeah, so I did not realize this until yesterday when the Worlds website went up, but my first Pokemon event was actually the first Pokemon World Championships back in 2004 in Orlando, Florida. And I've basically been going to one Pokemon event a year since then, barring a couple years in the middle where things got a little bit strange, let's say.
That's a good way of putting it. But it is safe to say we definitely have, I would even go as far as say we have the expert on today. Now, for those who maybe have heard about it and heard about something going on in London next week, what is Worlds exactly?
So I think Worlds is the culmination of what it means to be a competitive Pokemon player. Like, regardless of if you are a casual player just looking to like maybe dip your toes in the water, or if you're somebody who's qualified to compete in one of the games that we're featuring next week, it really is like the pedestal that you want to be there. You want to sort of celebrate your accomplishments. It's a big party. There's so much going on. There's usually like events going on. I know that they'll do like side tournaments as well that'll usually have some funky rules. Pikachu hopefully will be there. Like it really is just a celebration of everything competitive Pokemon, which is absolutely incredible.
Sounds good. Sounds good. You make it sound so much fun. So, you've hinted towards it already, but I want to give everyone a little bit of a kind of bit of an introduction to it. You have a rather special role at Worlds this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I will be one of the four commentators covering the Pokemon Go World Championships. This is actually technically the first time we're having the Pokemon Go World Championships. There was an invitational back in 2019, which was definitely a high level of competition, but it didn't have a full circuit around it. So we're going to be crowning the best Pokemon Go player in the world next week, and I'm so incredibly excited to be a part of that.
Is this the first time you're commentating for Go? I believe you've got a bit of a VGC background as well.
Yeah, so technically my first Go tournament was at NAIC about a month or so ago. But
Okay.
prior to that, I commentated VGC at Worlds in 2017, 2018, and 2019. And I've done a handful of VGC events around those as well, including, international championships, regionals, grassroots, all that fun stuff.
Very, very nice. So it's safe to say we definitely have two in one today. We have Go, we have VGC Talk today, so I'm sure we're going to have a fantastic time going through these questions. But let's get into it then. So one of the best things about Worlds, as you said, it's the kind of culmination of all things competitive, and it covers various aspects of Pokemon. We've got VGC, TCG, Unite, Go, Pokken, which means there's going to be a wide range of people. So let's start with VGC. That one's quite interesting because for a lot of people, they've played through the game. They've got to the Elite Four, they've become the champion. But VGC often is a step further than that. It's a whole new level, it's a whole new world of gameplay. So for those who maybe haven't seen VGC before, could you briefly describe the basics of it? Of if someone wants to watch it, how can they understand the key details?
Yeah, so if you've played through Sword and Shield, honestly, and you beat Raihan's gym, that's the one where you have the doubles and they teach you like the weather mechanics. That's a lot of what VGC is right now. The current format allows for two legendary Pokemon. So those are the ones on the box arts, like your Groudons, your Kyogres, your Palkias, your Calirexes. And as a result, I think end up seeing this game where it is you bring six Pokemon on your team. You choose 4 after seeing your opponent's 6 Pokemon, and then there's 2 on a field at the time, and you really have to focus on that positioning, focus on, I want these Pokemon out on the field against my opponent's Pokemon. These 2 have great weather synergy together, so I want to lead them together. And it's a lot more challenging, I think, than what you get in game because you are playing against another human being. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I think that the artificial intelligence in the games has gotten way better over the years. But being able to sort of sit down and see the puzzle play out in front of you and knowing that there's somebody else who sees the same puzzle and you're both trying to solve for your own win conditions is really exciting.
Yes, definitely. And again, flipping it to a go, I think we all remember the optimistic, possibly the greatest summer of our lives, summer of 2016. That was a special moment for all of us. But maybe some people haven't seen competitive Pokemon Go at all. Could you briefly explain that to us?
Honestly, I would say it's like the video game, the mainline story, singles, you have one Pokemon out on the field, but it's like really sped up.
Okay.
The thing about Pokemon Go is that it's very, very quick. So similar to VGC, you see your opponent's 6 Pokemon, you choose 3 Pokemon, and then it's all about making sure that you have the right Pokemon lined up against the other Pokemon and that you're tapping as fast as you can to get those moves in. It's very interesting coming from the video game, both from a competitive background and from a casual background into Go, because the time you have to make key decisions is so short. You really have to focus on like, okay, there's like 3 minutes I have before the game starts to figure out my strategy. I got to program it in and I got to execute it. Because if you make a half-second hesitation, that can honestly cost you the game sometimes.
You can imagine, especially Go. I feel like I've played it briefly before, and it is very much. It's all real time. There's no kind of, I'd say VGC. You've got the kind of turn based mechanic, and Go. It's just as the name suggests, you've got to go. So it's
You
very
go.
yeah, exactly. So that I can imagine that's going to be actually a really exciting format to watch, just because you'll have to just like watch, enjoy, appreciate, because you will miss it in a split second.
Yeah, at NAIC for the grand finals, actually, we had so grand finals in Go is best of 5.
Okay.
VGC and TCG are typically best of 3 games. We had it go to game 5, and then it actually ended on a tie. So
Ooh.
we had to reset the last game, and there was basically an unofficial game 6 where the series was decided. But like that was so hype because you see everybody mashing, you see the HP bars dropping, and then you see both Pokemon faint at once, and it's like, what? That happened? Like, how did that even like possibly align in a way to make that occur? It's so exciting.
That sounds very exciting. I think one thing that I've really enjoyed about talking to people about Worlds is that you see the excitement of every single game for everyone. For example, you're talking like VGC and Go with such level of hype that I think if you're watching this and you're not excited about the games by the end of it, rewatch it because it definitely will be worth it. So we're going to jump between VGC and Go a little bit. Of course, you are the expert in both, as it were. So we kind of get how the basics work now. We get VGC. As you say, you really did a good comparison of bringing it from where Sword and Shield is to where it can be. But there's so much more to it than that. I think a lot of people compare VGC to chess, as it were.
Yeah.
But one thing that everyone can appreciate and understand, regardless of your skill level, is that there are Pokemon involved, and we all like Pokemon. So what would you say, like, what are the kind of strongest Pokemon at the moment? Maybe, like, what are the best team builds, for example?
So we're in an interesting format in VGC because we're allowing these restricted legendary Pokemon to compete. And one thing that has held true in every single format where we've allowed these Pokemon. So I believe it was 2013, 2016, 2019, every 3 years, as
Yeah,
it were.
that's really
Uh,
interesting.
Yeah, you end up with these like centralized cores around the restricted legendary Pokemon because they're just so much more powerful. And then the other Pokemon on the team are typically there to support that Pokemon. Zacian, I think, by far is the best restricted legendary Pokemon because you can just put it on a team and it'll work. We've seen a lot of Zacian do well with Kyogre, with Groudon, with Calyrex, like you name it, someone's probably made it work somehow. But in terms of like duos, I would say that there's going to be a lot of Sun teams, as there was a team called Rinya Sun, which had Groudon, Charizard, Zacian, uh, all working together under the sunlight to get super boosted attacks, to use Charizard's Gmax fire move in order to do huge damage. Very, very popular towards the earlier part of 2022. Kyogre and Zacian work very well together. There's like three different flavors of it depending on what supportive Pokemon you run. Like one has Zapdos Grimmsnarl, one has Landorus Kartana. Those are all really powerful teams. And then the one that I find the most interesting is actually Palkia Calyrex Ice.
Okay.
Not because it doesn't have Zacian on it, which is definitely an interesting thing to call out, but because it focuses on Trick Room, which is a move that makes it so the slowest Pokemon move first for 5 turns. And that's typically a really difficult strategy to run when you have all these fast and powerful Pokemon elsewhere in the metagame. So the fact that it's been able to, I think it's won maybe like 1 or 2 regional championships across the world. And it's had a decent showing at every single tournament, regardless of what ended up winning that tournament as well. So the fact that that's still in contention metagame wise makes me very happy. I've had a lot of personal success with Trick Room, so I just like slow, bulky Pokemon strategy wise. And the fact that there is that option right now in the metagame is pretty cool.
That is good. I mean, I personally agree with you. I know my favorite VGC team, which is an absolute meme in itself, but I like Shuckle and Porygon too, which is
Oh,
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Like it's if you can set it up, it's fantastic. If you can't, you're doomed. But the day it works, oh, it works indeed. But let's dig a bit deeper into VGC. We'll come back to Go later. You've talked about the strong builds. You've spoke about the meta. I can see a lot of good legendaries, and maybe it's linked to Porygon and Shuckle. But on the flip side, we all love it when this happens. Are there any wild cards to keep an eye out for? Maybe just a team build, a Pokemon, maybe even a competitor themselves. Are there any particular people that's like, oh, that could be a really interesting one this year?
so I honestly don't know who's planning on running what, which is, I think, a good thing
That's very good.
because people need to keep their team secret. Like there was one year I think where some teams accidentally got out to the public like the day before Worlds, and it was very fun. I'll say. I wasn't competing that year, so it wasn't my problem.
Yeah.
Uh, um, so I would say that something that I've seen people start to play around with a bit more is figuring out ways to like add more bulk to teams that otherwise don't necessarily have it. There were a few people running Alchemy at the North American
Okay.
International Championships, and Alchemy gets Decorate, which will boost your stats. You can basically target your own partner Pokemon and boost those stats. I think that has a lot of potential. Just because at Worlds, the thing that you have to expect is that people know the common cores, they know the common strategies, they have their list, and they're just, going to their friends and, help me figure out how to beat Rinya's son, help me figure out how to beat Kyogre Zacian. So if you're able to like tweak your stats a little bit or throw a helping hand into your team, which will double the attack or double the power of a move essentially, you can really throw people off because you'll sort of go against what they were expecting from your team. So I think that those kind of plays are going to be really important going into Worlds. Um, that also being said, the one thing that I will caution people to keep an eye out for is that, the way that the Worlds is run is that there's the day one of competition, which is, the lower bar to qualify for, let's say. And then there's day two of competition where people who score like within the top 8 of their country's ranking boards, for example, can just skip immediately to that day of competition.
Okay.
So a lot of times we will see people in day one run very consistent, very predictable, very strong teams because they want to make it to day two. And then when day two comes around, that's when they bust out the weird strategies because at that point in time, you've already made it to that secondary point. You don't have to worry about, oh, my gimmick only works against X, Y, and Z, and I just ran into 5 of them during Swiss and I'm out of the tournament type situations. So I think the other thing that I'm also looking forward to seeing is if anybody's tried to quote unquote break the metagame.
Okay. Yeah.
Back in 2016, I think that Wolf Glick and Marcus did a very good job of building this Kyogre Mega Rayquaza Raichu team that you may remember. And they kept that team a secret until essentially the World Tournament, and then no one just had anything that could beat it. They just were able to solve the format, and that was how Wolf ended up winning that year. So, given that we're back in a restricted format, I think that it might be likely that someone will try and make that play. Um, I personally think that there are too many restricted Pokemon out there to just find a team that beats everything like in 2016, but you never know. someone else might have that play and they're just sitting on
Hopefully
it.
so. Hopefully so. I think it'd be really nice as we're kind of moving into Scarlet and Violet as well to have that kind of meta-defining, meta-breaking team at the end of it. It would just be such a lovely kind of outro to it to go, right, we've done now, off to Scarlet and Violet now. That would be absolutely fantastic. Now, you've mentioned some names there. I'm sure there's names of people everyone knows. You mentioned Wolfie, for example. And that's the kind of joy of VGC. I think it's the one that, in particular, that people know the most of because, number one, it's been around for a while, but number two, a lot of the content creators or the top contenders can also be content creators. So it's a really kind of well-known format. But for people who don't know, the household names, as we'll call them, who are the people to be looking out for this year? Is there any top contenders that you think have a real strong chance of winning?
I know Wolf is very hungry for the win. I think that he's actually been planning on his Worlds team for a very long time, which is something interesting to keep an eye out for. I know Joe UX9, another popular streamer, is also very hungry for the prize. Gabriel Agati from the Latin American circuit is a very strong player, has been doing very well in recent tournaments. And then, beyond that, I feel like there are going to be some really strong competitors coming in as well. But it's tough to say. A lot of people tend to go quiet around this time of year just to make sure that they're not accidentally spoiling their team. So it's hard to say who's hungry for it when, their social media just goes
Yeah.
dark and you're like, are you prepping or are you just like playing Fire Emblem Warriors or something because you want to play that game instead?
Yeah, that's true. Based on the game release, all that, but it's a good sign. At least you can tell that whoever's going quiet might be planning something absolutely incredible.
I think
I
so.
think one thing I've really enjoyed to hear across these interviews is that actually there is a real sense in Pokemon at the moment that there's no one strong region. There's no kind of like defining, right, that's the region that's going to win. For example, in fighting games, you often see the Japanese and the Koreans absolutely destroying the game. Would you say the same for VGC at the moment? Are there any strong regions, or is it quite balanced across the world?
I think it's quite balanced, but I think that's also because we have so many tournaments now that are worldwide. There's a grassroots circuit going on right now called the World Cup, for example, that literally has countries facing off against each other, and it's very cool to see that because it gives us a more international metagame going into the World Championships. Whereas in previous years, like I competed at Worlds in 26 or 2015, excuse me, and that year, Japan was able to just come in and they had the best team and they just absolutely dominated because of that. You don't see that kind of situation happening much anymore because there are reasons to keep playing these like international level tournaments even in the off season. As a result, I think people end up seeing the metagame overall and adopting more of a maybe globalized play style is the way that I want to phrase it, rather than just focusing specifically on regions. But it's also been a weird year. I mean, typically, like local metagames will bubble up when we have locals. Regional metagames will bubble up when the regionals are happening. Because we haven't had those events, that could also contribute to this. It's tough to say.
Yeah, I think one thing that is quite unique or maybe like distinct about VGC is actually it can be played globally quite easily because it's not as real time as say Unite or any other games. So it's very much you can play it on the global level without having to worry about latency as much as say Unite as Go, for example. But Go especially, I can imagine if you miss off like 5 thumb presses, that's game over for you. So I can imagine it's very, very different in comparison.
Yeah, the nice thing about Go though is that they actually standardize the phones that people play on
Okay.
at IRL tournaments. Yeah, I know. It's kind of cool actually. So, when you're practicing at home, yeah, you do have to worry about latency, you do have to worry about ping, you do have to worry about, your own personal device. But when you at least go to a tournament and you log into the phone that they provide you to play with, everybody's on an equal standing field, which is good.
That's really, really good. I was not aware of that whatsoever. And I say it's almost the kind of, it makes sense when you say it that, we don't want the person on the very basic, I'm not going to name any brands, very basic phone versus the bought the phone yesterday, completely fresh, has got the fastest processor in the world. So that's actually really good that they're really considering that. But let's flip it back. We kind of hinted towards Go there, so let's go back to Go. We've spoke about this idea of we've spoke about the basics of it, and we'll go back to this idea of what's the strongest Pokemon? What's the current meta in Pokemon Go right now?
The current metagame in Pokemon Go is I want to say it's been pretty standardized, all things considered. The way that Go works, it feels much more like a rock, paper, scissors type game where, you have certain Pokemon that will always win against other Pokemon. And as a result, you'll end up seeing teams of six that are relatively similar. Um, when we were at the North American International Championships, Registeel, Walrein, Trevenant, Deoxys Defense Form, Medicham, like those were some really common Pokemon that were popping up all over the place. I'm expecting a similar thing for Worlds. We did see some quote unquote spicy picks come through and do very well in that tournament. One person was able to qualify for top eight using a Shadow Beedrill, which was
Oh,
very, very exciting. There was a Lickitung that actually won the tournament, which is a very bulky Pokemon. Gets access to a Ghost type fast move, which I think really helped it, power through a lot of the competition. But overall, I think that we'll be seeing similar Pokemon bubble up to the top just because one, there are less options. And two, the game works so quickly. I think that it's harder to sort of find those like, oh, this is a cool, spicy tech type Pokemon because you really have to fit it in perfectly. Whereas in VGC, it's a lot easier to say, well, I want to make this Pokemon work. So let me build this team around it type situations.
sounds good. Sounds good. And I like how you mentioned some of the spicier picks, the kind of wild cards that there's potential to see. It'd be really interesting to see what could come out of kind of the wildcard plays. But as you say, it might be a bit more standardized than VGC, which should be good to see. I think it will help people understand the game a lot more because you'll be seeing the familiar faces, Pokemon, as it were. But let's talk about the competitors as well. I think Pokemon Go is one of those games that a lot of people see as the community game that everyone has access to, but we don't really know in terms of like who are the top players. At least I don't, at least. Do you know anyone who's particularly well known in Go who's like thinking that they're hungry for the prize this year?
I think they're all hungry for it, first of all,
Definitely.
because it is first ever world championships. And how many people can say, yo, I was the first world champion? Like, you may be the world champion, but I got there first type situation. I know that King, who was the winner of the 2019 Invitational, also earned his invite to compete. His soon-to-be wife, actually Cindy, also earned a invite to compete, which is
Oh,
pretty exciting. Yeah, they both won regionals like almost back to back to qualify, which was pretty cool. It's Axon qualified off of the North American International Championships. I think he's pretty hungry for it. And then there's also a couple of players from down in Mexico who take Pokemon Go very seriously, who will be up here competing as well. So I'm very excited to see how things are going to play out. I think that there is also some opportunity for a couple of upsets because Pokemon Go is also featuring a last chance qualifier.
okay.
Um, for those of you who don't know what that means the Thursday of Pokemon World, so day one essentially. They'll be holding basically a regional style tournament where the top two players, I think, get to go and compete in the World Championships the next day. So there are a lot of people who missed out on their invites who are flying out to London now specifically to compete in that event. So I'm hoping that that'll also kind of spice things up so much. If you were traveling to Worlds just to enter the LCQ, you win it, and then you go on to get like top four or even win the World Championships. I mean, that's crazy hype as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, that would be a fantastic story. The kind of a only just got on the flight. Obviously, we're having airport issues everywhere. This could be the start of an absolutely brilliant story. So hopefully, while I don't wish upsets, we all like a good spicy story, but a little bit of an underdog story, which should be really, really good. Now, looking at the schedule for the events, it's more than just the main event. You kind of mentioned it before, there might be some side tournaments. Can you talk to us a little bit more about those? Maybe in the past, some that you've entered, or some that you know are going on this year for both VGC and Go.
Yeah, so like I mentioned for Pokemon Go, there is the last chance qualifier happening on Thursday. I believe there's also an LCQ happening for Pokken on Thursday. So
Yes.
if you're somebody who wants to just, show up and try and qualify for the World Championships, highly recommend it. Oh man, I think I top eight one LCQ and I got top 32 in another LCQ. And they're a lot of fun. They're very high stress, high pressure. But you get to really play against the best of the best. And that's something that you can't really do in any other location. Similarly, there is the Open tournament, the London Open tournament for VGC and Go happening on Saturday. This is also a regional style tournament that will award championship points for the following season. So it's a great way to get a jump start on your qualification for next year. It's also a great way to play people from around the world and is honestly a really fun tournament to participate in. I've entered that a couple of times myself as well. But even if you're like not ready to sort of go toe to toe with the big leads, so to speak, there are so many little side events. There'll be like pickup pods where 8 people will just sign up for a tournament, and you can just play it. I think they run these for every game. There'll be some weird format tournaments like Spikemouth Cup for VGC where they don't allow Dynamax and they don't allow legendary Pokemon. So it's very much like OG VGC, if you will. There is also the Malamar Cup, which is a personal
Okay.
favorite because you have to play with your Switch upside down.
Oh,
Uh,
oh, that sounds good.
yeah, that's it. Nobody's done a headstand, as far as I can tell, to play in that tournament yet, but I really hope somebody does eventually. If you do, please send me a
Yeah, I
picture.
was
I'd
gonna
love
say
to see it.
that is our request now. One of you's got to do that. Mention it in the comments. We'll find you. Don't worry.
Yeah. And then there's also just like some I want to say there's also some like speed run-esque type tournaments where
Yeah, I've
like you
seen a little
get
about these. They're good.
yeah, you get like a half hour and one or two routes or one or two places in the wild area that you can go to catch Pokemon, build a team, and then you play through a tournament. What's awesome about all these side events is that you earn prize tickets and then you can redeem the prize tickets for prizes at the prize wall. And it is like the most hype part about Worlds because if you just show up to the prize wall or side events slash the prize wall and you're like, I want to win this thing, you can basically win that thing. And they'll have a bunch of like really rare plush. They'll have some of the world's merchandise there, most likely pins, playmats. There was one regional I went to that had like 100 Bidoof hats that they were giving
Oh,
away at the prize wall. And you just saw more and more people wearing them as the weekend went on, which was amazing. So it is definitely a lot of fun, and it's a great way to start competing if you've never, tried competitive VGC or competitive Go or TCG or what have you.
I've got to say, I was kind of looking at these events like, oh, I might enter. Now you've said the prize wall. Now you've said the Bidoof hats. Now I'm like, I think you're gonna find me at least one of those events. I think it sounds like a lot of fun. Malamark, I might be the one doing the headstand at this point, but we'll see how that goes. But it does sound like a lot of fun. But if there was one piece of advice, and let's boil it all down to that one piece of advice you give to someone coming to Worlds, whether that be a spectator or a competitor, I'll be honest with you, a few people have given two, so you can give two if you want. But if there was a piece of advice or two that you could give to everyone, what would it be?
Don't forget to have fun. And this is a very personal story for me. So, like I mentioned earlier, I qualified for Worlds in 2015. I went very hard for that tournament. Like, I was practicing probably 4 or 5 hours a day for about the month and a half leading up to it. It was something that it was something that I always aspired to do. And when the actual day came, I was so caught up in the emotions of competing and the stress of it all that I honestly forgot to enjoy it. And looking back, I don't necessarily regret doing that because it led me to where I am today. And that's a big part of my story as to how I got involved in commentary. But if I could go back, I think I would definitely tell myself, like, it's okay to breathe, it's okay to have fun. Like, this is a celebration of what you've accomplished in this year. And of course, you want the prize. Of course, you want to, make day two. But it's okay to stop and smell the roses, as it were, along the way.
Very, very nice. That is a wonderful wonderful summary. I think it's one thing that we all need to remember, especially, whether you are a competitor, whether you're a spectator as well, we are all there to have fun. So enjoy it. Don't get too stressed about everything that could be going on. Just enjoy your time there. I think it's, it's going to be a special year. It's the first Worlds that we've had back since everything's kind of been flipped around a little bit. So it's going to be a really special opportunity. I imagine there are going to be friendships that are going to be reunited, friendships that are going to be formed, but just all around, we're going to have a great, great time. Now,
Definitely.
for those who want to know more about you, of course, you're going to be seen throughout the weekend, and of course, you are going to be center stage for a lot of it. But for those who want to find out more about you, how can they reach out to you? How can they, perhaps your socials? How can they find out more about you?
Yeah, so my social media of choice is Twitter, at Gabby Snyder. It's just my name. I'll be posting updates throughout the weekend from Worlds there myself, which I'm very much looking forward to. I also stream on twitch.tv/simplygabby. I'll be doing some streams leading up to the World Championships in Pokemon Go. But by the time this comes out, I might already be in London. So maybe just save that one for when I get back. Because
Either way, check her out on
either
Twitch.
way.
Make sure to give her a follow at the very least. Then when she does, you know where you need to go. We will all include all those links in the description as well. So you can all just scroll down now, go and find them, click follow everywhere, and you can have a good time. But Gabby, it's been an absolute pleasure today. Safe to say, I'm excited for Go, I'm excited for VGC, and I'm just excited for Worlds in general. Thank you so much for today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Safe travels, and yeah, see you out there.
So that's all we have for today. I'm going to have to win something off that prize wall, aren't I? But before we go, if you could let me know what you think in the poll below. Did this video make you want to find out more about competitive Pokemon? Whether it be VGC, Go, or any other format? I'd love to hear from you. As always, if you did enjoy this video, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, make sure you check out Gabby. Her links are in the description. Until next time, take it easy, and I'll see you soon.